Fingers has been mesmerizing audiences around the world, teaching people to also do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, he has done theaters. He has done stadiums and arenas with some of the biggest names in the business. Please meet and greet the one and only Karsh. Hey, Ken, how you doing, man?
Timmy, I'm doing great. It's so great to be here.
Man, I'm so happy that you agreed to come down. I know you got a very tight schedule, man, and you've been just dazzling audiences, man, with the mastery of your guitar playing for like decades, man. I mean, many decades. But this is an opportunity for people to get a little glimpse of who really is Karsh. So we're going to go all the way back to the beginning, all right?
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Fasten your seatbelt, man. Where was you born?
Okay. The year?
Where?
Where? I was born in Pittsburgh, East Liberty, Negley Avenue, first home, and then grew up in Highland Park.
You grew up in Highland Park.
I did.
So what was that like for you growing up in Highland Park as a little boy?
Highland Park was a great place to grow up. It was it's kind of a safe place to be, and it was nice to walk around and just have, just kind of taking the beauty of the neighborhood. It's just a really cool place, and mostly I think I remember just kind of being mostly kind of Italian, kind of Irish, I think, and then the occasional Jews that were there. That was a couple of my friends as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, take us there as a little boy. Your earliest recollection. What did you do for fun?
Do for fun in Highland Park.
As a little boy.
I actually, well, aside from playing with the kids in the neighborhood, hide and seek, things like that.
Oh, did you do that?
I did that.
Yeah,
man. Bicycling around the neighborhood was
Okay.
fun. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really a sports person, so I can't say that I had fun doing that. But I mean, we played kickball in the street, and so it was, and also King Estates, which is just on the next block of Elgin, where right across the street, across from Negley Avenue, and we go sledding in the wintertime. That was a place to hang for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you live pretty much close to Highland Park, like where the zoo is?
Yeah. At night, one of the memories I remember as a kid, at night you could hear the zoo animals.
Get out of here.
Absolutely, you could hear them.
Yeah.
The occasional, the ostriches, the occasional roar. Trains at night, which is always nice because the railroad tracks were down near Allegheny River Boulevard, so you could definitely hear it. So it was nice.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man. Now, I know that you're an excellent guitarist, and that instrument came into your life at some time. When did that instrument come into your life?
The instrument, as early as I can remember in terms of, being attracted to the sound, I'm going to mention Chubby Checker's Limbo Rock.
Get out of here.
Okay. And then, because I love the intro, I still love that song. I mean, I just really love it, the groove and the spark, the vibe of it. And then when I remember as very young when the Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan Show, I recently saw the YouTube clip of that, and then when they played "I Want to Hold Your Hand," I thought, That was it. That's what I remembered. Okay. And I remember George, the electric guitar, and I'm going, wow, but really I wanted to be a drummer. Because I thought Ringo was cool.
Yeah.
So I remember fashioning a drum kit, a purple hat box. I cut out like a little foot pedal out of a hat box or something, out of a box, some kind of cardboard box. And it didn't do anything. I had a pie tin for cymbal, had my little drum kit on the third floor.
Get out of here. No,
But
we talking before kindergarten?
This is probably a little after kindergarten.
A little after, around maybe first grade, something
about first
like
grade, second grade. And then when guitar came into my life, I remember studying violin in Fulton Elementary School. That's where I went to school.
Oh, you study violin?
Well, I mean, class violin.
Yeah.
I was not into it. I mean, I could play it, but I didn't want to read music. And I remember at the end, I was being quizzed, and I couldn't read the music. And I remember the teacher saying, "You mean all this time you were faking it?" I remember my little mind thinking, "You mean all this time you couldn't tell?" I couldn't say that because I would have gone to the principal's office. But then the guitar, I want to put that in there because leading up to the guitar, my two sisters played guitar.
Oh.
And so they used to, kind of duet or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I remember my sister Harriet, she passed in 2012, but she was playing one day in the dining room. And I walked in, I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm just, playing." And I said, "Can you show me that?" And she did. And I remember sitting for days thinking, okay, I kept trying to play and my fingers were hurting, and I'm thinking, after, I don't know how many days it was, but I thought, this is it. I came home from lunch from school. We could walk from Fulton School back to home. That's how close it was. And I'm thinking, this is it. If I don't get it today, I'm done. I quit. Well, obviously, I got it. Yeah. And then I went back to school because I was really excited because like, oh my God, I can switch the chords. This is great. And I'm thinking, well, my sisters played guitar. They must have books that have more chords in it. And I'm thinking this, I was in like third grade. And probably being accused of daydreaming at the time, so that's true. And so I remember coming home, looking for the Beatles book that I knew they had, couldn't find it. But they had a book called The Weaver's Songbook, whole page of guitar chord diagrams.
Wow.
I'm looking at this going, how do I figure this out? I figured it out, taught myself how to read the diagrams. By that night, I literally had most of the chords on the page.
Wow.
And I figured it, my motto was like, if I could switch this A to D to E7 or E natural, how tough can it be with the other ones? So I would have been content to play chords my whole life. Like, this is cool, I'm playing the groove, this is wonderful, yeah. My mother, who was an opera singer, and was very keen on the fact, she was thrilled that one of her kids was showing this initiative, but guitar, oh my God, she's thinking. And but she says, well, I think you should take lessons. And I grudgingly, of course, said yes. And
no, what age are we talking here?
We're
what grade?
talking
what grade?
about 8 or 9.
So you was what, like fourth grade? Is this
somewhere around there? Yeah, it might have even been earlier.
A little earlier than that.
Yeah, because I remember playing on my own for a while, and then it wasn't like right away that my mother said take lessons. It was after a certain point.
I think it probably was earlier.
Yeah, it might.
And I'll tell you why I say that a little later on.
All right.
But here's what I wanted to know. You mentioned the violin.
Yeah.
How did that all come about for you? How did you end up with a violin in your hand in the first place?
Fulton School had a music program, and they selected a couple of the kids that were going to participate in instrumental class. And my brother, I have a fraternal twin brother, my brother Ralph. He got the French horn, and I got the violin. That's just how it. That's the way it worked. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a funny thing. I love cello. Violin, it's hard when you play violin. It's really, when you're beginning, you don't sound good. It just doesn't work. My violin playing friends, I have such respect for them for taking on beginners. It's really hard.
Yeah.
You have to have patience of a saint.
Yeah.
But that's how that happened. So continuing with my first teacher, straighten out what he would consider my bad habits. And it's unusual because he gave me a grounding that in foundation, I wasn't really aware of it, but little things, playing rhythms to certain chords and reading, definitely. And I was undisciplined. I mean, I love to play, as we all love to play, hate to practice, and I'd get it, and then if I didn't get it, he'd say, let's review this. It's like, oh my God. And he got me into jazz. And my first jazz book, I remember, was Mickey Baker's Complete Course in Jazz Guitar, and which was, this is cool. I'm going to be learning jazz chords. And the minute I played those chords in the book, I thought, oh, this is it. All of a sudden, I'm like, hey, I sound like Joe Negri. It's like, that's the Joe, as I hear like the Pittsburgh, hey, that's them Joe Negri chords you're playing.
Yeah.
And so he got me into that. And he got me into listening to Johnny Smith.
I was going to ask you. Were you listening to music at this time?
I was always listening to music, but not jazz. I remember my earliest in jazz guitar awareness was Joe Negri, because he was on Paul Shannon's Adventure Time.
Right.
And he would play that beautiful D'Angelico guitar he had. It's huge, and I used to sneak play it when I taught at Buckle Musical Enterprises. So I would hear him, and then on WQEX, it was channel 16 at the time, Frederick Node had his show playing the guitar, and he would play Adelita by Tarrega at the end, and it was just beautiful. So I had early exposure, but my teacher gave me Johnny Smith. Actually, he asked me who my favorite guitar player was.
Okay.
I didn't know anything. I just read about Wes Montgomery. Okay, it was before he died, actually. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that dates it because it was 1968. Okay. All right, so yeah, and I was reading in the article, amazing musician, fantastic, plays completely by ear, doesn't read music, like, okay, who doesn't play by ear? And I told him that my favorite guitarist was Wes Montgomery, although I hadn't heard him.
Right.
And he got upset with me. He said, Wes, that's too commercial. You have to listen to Johnny Smith. I thought, who in God's name is that?
Yeah.
And he gives me these two, actually he sells me these two records, $3 a piece, okay? And it was Johnny Smith's Kaleidoscope. And I remember going on the third floor, we had a little stereo, like a little portable stereo, one of the earlier ones. And I'm looking at this album, and I see this guy with a crew cut playing a big, the archtop guitar, and I'm going, is that an electric guitar? It looks like it. And what's with the crew cut? He looks like Steve Canyon from like Golden Book days, yes sir, that kind of thing. It's like, and he looks real like gung ho, like macho Marine. I'm like, oh my God. Am I gonna like this? I put on the first cut, Shadow of Your Smile.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's it. I was hooked.
Blew you away.
It just blew me away. Later on, I question, as students will do and must do, they must question their teachers, even if they don't do it openly. So I thought, why doesn't he want me to listen to Wes Montgomery? So I decided to buy a Wes Montgomery record. I picked the most commercial record you could have gotten of Wes's. Okay, A Day in the Life. Wes is I love the picture, the cigarette ashes. Wes like this, looking kind of beat, because obviously he was working hard anyway. And I put on A Day in the Life, and I'm used to what I would consider jazz shredding by Johnny, and Wes is just doing playing Day in the Life. And I'm going, oh, this is okay. This is no big deal. And then he plays Watch What Happens, which I was learning. And he plays this, and he's playing simple, that kind of thing. I'm going, he's playing slow. Johnny's doing all this, he's doing this. And I kept thinking, oh, my teacher's right. And I kept going back to the record.
Okay.
He was right, but I kept listening to it, drawn to it. And later, I bought my second Wes album, Tequila. And from there, Wes is like my idol.
Now this sounds like that. Are you still in elementary school when you're doing all this?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I was.
That's what I thought.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, this
that's
is in
pretty
high school, yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive for someone in elementary school. But at some point, you were recommended to join the All City Elementary School Orchestra. Am I correct?
Can I say that's where I met you?
Right?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
so
yeah.
when we come back, could you tell us about that experience?
I would love to. That'd be
Ladies and
great.
gentlemen, stick and stay. Don't you dare go away. We'll be right back with Mr. Ken Karsh. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If you are just joining us, you are missing it. So take your shoes off, get comfortable. We're here with the fantastic Mr. Ken Karsh. And before we went to the break, he was taking us on his journey with his guitar And also, he was getting ready to share with us, he was recommended to join the All-City Elementary Orchestra, which is an orchestra that was constructed supposedly of the best musicians in the city of Pittsburgh school system. So continue to take us on that journey. What was that experience like with you? And how did you get recommended to join All City in the first place?
I'm actually trying. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that. I know my mother knew Stanley Levin. Okay.
Okay, he was the
And
director.
Stanley Levin was the director. Okay, and I guess she took me down to play for him, and he took it upon himself to put me in.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. It's funny because there was another guitar player. Just as a side, I remember this one kid came in. He had this Kingston guitar, and he was playing some. He played some serious like blues jazz licks, and I remember I was kind of astonished, and he looked at me and said, "Have you ever heard Kenny Burrell?" And I just kind of read about him. I was like, kind of, and whatever. And I was kind of, but for some reason, I guess he couldn't read, so he didn't get in. That's the one thing, which was a shame because I still don't know who that was, but I remember he could play.
Yeah,
and it was cool. But I remember, Stanley Levin, I guess, was trying to be progressive, and I remember what I was doing. I was probably reading violin parts. I remember doing that.
Oh, really?
I think a few times.
Okay.
And then he had we did that one concert. I remember we had the recordings, and unfortunately mine is long gone.
I don't have any of those recordings, man. Those albums that we used to record at the Syria Mosque.
Right.
But I do remember Stanley Levin, the director. I remember him saying, man, about this great kid, man, guitar player. And we looking around, but we got a guitar player in the orchestra, man. It was you, man.
It was
you know what?
cool.
And Stanley Levin, man, he liked you best, man.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I thought he was pretty fair to everybody.
He was crazy about you, man. I'm telling you, man.
He was,
all those decades ago, I
Yeah.
still remember that, man. I'm like, man, and the way you played, everybody was like, man, who is this guy, man? You know what I mean?
I just remember when he would leave rehearsal, it was like A for applesauce, B for bananas. Like that's like, oh my God, it's pretty funny. But he had us do this piece, Begin for Flutes, and I remember it was actually more. It literally was a begin and had percussion and the three flutes, and it was a really pleasant little piece. And then my feature was the song "Watch What Happens." Yeah. And I couldn't believe I was playing this jazz piece with orchestra, which was normally classical based. So it was exciting.
Now you were still also playing in your school. Your school had an orchestra band?
Okay. So.
Or you were just playing with All City at that point?
No, well, I was playing a little bit with the orchestra in school.
Okay.
Our teacher, I remember, was Cecile Miller, and she wanted me to try to play bass because she figured, the tuning is similar. So she even loaned me a small bass. I took it home, and I enjoyed kind of messing around with it, but I never really studied with it. She said one day, "Did you start with your bass lessons?" I said, "Well, not really," and so I just kept playing guitar. And I mean, I would just read parts, whatever. I would just be happy hanging out, doing what I do. So a little bit of that. But playing with All City was fun. I love the road trips. It was fun to...
Yeah.
That concert that we recorded was in Harrisburg, actually.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, every year we would do a concert at the Syria Mosque.
Right.
And every year they would record that.
Yeah, that's where we did the recording.
Into an album.
Right.
Every year. Now, let me ask you this. Now, after elementary school, did you continue on to All City Junior High School?
No, I didn't continue on to All City Junior High, but going into... So now, going into high school, I was at Peabody, all right?
Okay, well, let's back up. Wait a minute.
Right.
What about your junior high school years? What did you do?
There was no junior high. We went from 1 to 8.
Oh, is that how you did it?
So, yeah, Fulton Elementary went all the way to 8th grade.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, it was cool because in 8th grade we did spring concerts. I mean, if I wasn't doing my own thing, I was doing other people's things. So it was kind of cool what was fun about that was that the teacher who was the violin teacher was still teaching instrumental music. And she said, "Aren't you the one who played violin?" And I said, "Why, yes." And she said, "Well, you've developed into a wonderful guitarist." And I said, "Well, thank you." So that was kind of satisfying to hear, considering that she didn't think I had musical ability.
Right.
So,
right.
but I'll leave her name out for now.
Yeah.
But so going into Peabody High School, I remember we visited it first. I remember hearing the orchestra play, and so John Zorowski was the music teacher, band director, whatnot, and he just did pretty much everything except he didn't do choral. He didn't do the choral music. Mary Kiplinger did that, but I remember first hearing the orchestra. They played this song called "All About the Blues." And I'm sitting as visiting Peabody High School going, "Oh my God, they're playing jazz. That's cool. That's exciting. This is great. All right, so I'm going to play, let's see what happens." And so I made myself known to Mr. Zorowski, and I don't remember, there could have been a combination of him knowing about me, and I owe a tremendous amount of how my high school positive experiences to Dr. Harry Clark. And I just definitely want to say that. He was our vice principal at the time. He bantered a lot of, bantered. He bantered like me, Cecil Brooks, Donna Davis. And, when he found out what I could do and I was playing jazz, it was just great because I had some credibility, because I had no athletic ability. So my identity, all of a sudden, I may not be able to run that mile as fast as anybody, but yeah, he's playing. This is great. And when I was called to the office, I would be, over the intercom, "Well, Kenneth Karsh, please report to Mr. Clark's office." And all the kids in my class go, "Oh, you're busted, man." It's like this, like, oh my God. And I knew I wasn't, because I'd go and he says, "Gigs at 6:30 tonight, I'll pick you up," because I wasn't driving. And I was doing gigs.
That was pretty cool. Now, do you remember like your first jazz gig and what the experience was like for you?
My first jazz...
Was it with Dr. Clark? Was it with Dr. Clark?
There are a couple of things. I can go back as far as my first jazz moment. Let's say moment, because it wasn't a gig. My teacher knew Bobby Negri, and so Bobby was, had his piano trio out at the Holiday Inn. So in that trio was a bassist, Scotty Hood, and Bill Butchko was playing drums, I believe. I didn't know their names at the time, but he told Bobby about me, and Bobby said, "Well, bring him out to sit in." So now I knew Bobby was Joe's brother, but a lot of people don't realize what an incredible musician Bobby Negri was. I mean, he was just a phenomenal piano player, just phenomenal jazz musician. And so I sit in, I play Watch What Happens, do my little, I was kind of improvising a little bit, and I played Watch What Happens and Here's That Rainy Day, the two tunes that I knew. And at the end, it was so positive, it was so great. And he said, "Well, you know any more tunes?" And I said, "Well, no, not yet." He says, "Come back when you have more tunes." And it was so great. It was so positive. Yeah. So that was my first experience.
Well, how did that make you feel, man?
Oh, it defined where I was going. It defined what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So with talking about Harry Clark, he was also playing trumpet in the University of Pittsburgh Jazz Band. So while I'm in high school, now I'm 16 now, all right, and Nathan Davis was ahead of the program, getting that off the ground, and my mother takes me down to meet him, and play for him, and I do that, and Nathan says, "Yeah, he sounds good," and my mother, said, "Thank you. What are you going to do for him?" she had no filter, which was good because
it was great.
So what Nathan offered to do was he put me in the Pitt Jazz Band. I think Mike Whiteley was the other guitar player, and Mike was playing. So we were two guitar players. It was great. And started to meet people through there, and I was also allowed to audit the improvisation course. Not getting credit, but I was, Nathan being in his class. I mean, the jazz master class. That's
Right.
pretty cool. And Harry was playing trumpet.
Now, during the course of all this, what was your practice regimen like, your personal practice?
That's what I keep trying to remember because I really came from like I loved to play, hated to practice, but it didn't mean I wasn't working on stuff. Like to me, if I was working on a concept, like if I was doing like a skipping interval exercise or playing a riff or playing along to a record, which I did a lot, it wasn't practice, it was playing. So I played for hours. I don't think I had. I would do reading and do things like that, but I wasn't this. I really wasn't this like musical bookworm. I wasn't sitting there going, flawlessly through Mel Bay. In fact, I remember having a lot of reviews in the book, but I love to play and I love to learn, and I just tried to pick up whatever I could. So it really was a matter of like being exposed to musical moments. I really feel that I'm more organized now. I wrote a book actually for Duquesne when I was doing the guitar seminars. All the handouts I put together, I put into like a compendium called Fingerboarding Made Easy, Scale Visualization for guitar, and really it was like all the time reading articles, picking up things, knowing that I had to do it after a certain point. If somebody lit a fire under me, I would say, okay, I have to get my act together. I got to really do this. And so scales started to be important. Everything started to be important.
Right.
So,
right.
so the routine was in environment. George Benson made a comment in an interview, environment was the key. When they asked, how did you acquire your vast jazz knowledge? And George said, if Jack McDuff had not needed a guitar player, I would probably be still singing rhythm and blues in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. I thought, amen to that. Yeah. And George Benson's idea of practice kind of mirrors mine. I like it because it's doable. He said, I don't measure the time I spend practicing. It's just as long as it takes to get it together, which is so human. And so I know there are times I could be practicing maybe I practiced 12 hours at one point, maybe I practiced less, maybe more, but I always played.
12 hours, huh?
Well, I remember doing a recording. I was, I was in my 20s. I had a 4-track recorder. 7 o'clock in the evening on a summer night, still light out. I was playing nonstop, recording nonstop, track after track, playing. It literally is practice.
Yeah.
And when I looked up and finally took a break, the sun was out, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, how did I do that?
How time flies when you're having fun. Huh?
Right, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this, Ken. What about your ear? I mean, what I mean is that, do you put on a record and try to decipher what the guitar player is playing and play along with that and try to match it note for note? Or
I've done that. I'm more like when I've done transcriptions. And I was relieved that I heard that Michael Brecker did this because I felt a little better about it because I love, if I hear something I really like, I will write it down. I will play along to it. Mm-hmm. I've written out Pat Martino's solos, Tal Farlow's solos. I try to emulate what I hear. That's mostly what I've done. When I was kind of quoting the Wes Montgomery from what we talked about before, some of the lines, I would actually tell my students a story and attempt to play the lines that I've never really written out, but just kind of internalized. And then I said, obviously, I like the music. Yeah. So yeah, I that was part of it, like listening, trying to emulate. I mean, I remember being on Joe Negri's Talent, seeing the TV show, and I was more concerned. And I was 12. I was 12 years old when I first went on, and I was more concerned as how he did this really beautiful scale run with a chromatic slide. I didn't care I was on TV. I was like, Joe, how do you do that? How does that work? And I did learn that, I think, but I don't know. It's just being fascinated with learning and just try to pick it up, and yeah, it developed my ear.
Yeah, cool, man. So Joe Negri beat me at having you first as a guest. He beat me.
Oh, yeah?
I thought this was your first television appearance.
Oh, God, no.
Well, look here. When we come back, will you continue to take us on this journey? Because at some
Absolutely.
point, you went to college, correct?
I did.
Yeah. So maybe you can continue to take us on this journey?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't you dare touch that dial. We'll be right back with Mr. Ken Karsh.
Say where you at? Where's your natural habitat? Baby, where you at? I wanna go there. Hey, where's the place? Which direction do I face? Tell me where's the place? I got to go there. Well, I was doing fine, then you came to call. I've been searching high and low, but I can't find you nowhere at all. Say where you at? Stop before I flip my hat. Baby, where you at? I got to go there. Ba-ba-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-doo. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-doo. Ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Ba-ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-dee-dee-dee-dee-doo-doo. Ba-ba-ba-da-da-da-da. natural habitat. Baby, where you at? I got to go there. Hey, where's the place? Which direction do I face? Tell me where's the place? I got to go there. Well, I was doing fine when you came to call. I've been searching high and low, but I can't find you nowhere at all. Say, where you at? Stop before I flip my hat. Baby, where you at? I got to go there. Hey, where art thou? Spider.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are just joining us, we're here with the fantastic Mr. Ken Karsh. And before we went to the break, he was taking us on this fantastic journey. And we know at some point that he had went to college, but before he had went to college, something else fascinating happened. Would you tell us, what was that experience?
Okay, so leading into my high school jazz experiences, I'll mention the real first jazz gig was through Nathan. Okay, I played with two Japanese students that were at Pitt at the time. Akira Suzuki was the drummer, and Hideo Shimada was playing bass. And he got us a trio gig at the Encore, which was it was amazing to do that. Playing with a jazz band was rewarding, and being in the environment of like doing big band, but at the same time they had electronic music going on, so I was hanging out with people who were into that, playing with people who were into more progressive music involving time signature changes. And then I was a big fan at the time of Eric Kloss. One of my idols is also guitarist Pat Martino, who has recorded so much with Eric. And so Eric was local, Pittsburgh, playing at Sunny Day Stage Door, which was in Oakland at the time on the corner of Forbes and Myron. And I wanted to meet Eric. So Vince Genova was at Pitt doing his studies there, and Vince is playing piano with Eric. He says, "Oh, you want to meet Eric? I'll take you down." And they wouldn't let me in the club because I was too young. But and I said, "I still want to meet Eric." And Eric came out, and first thing I said, I admire you so much. I would love to study with you. And we worked out doing that.
Get out of here.
So, I would go to his house. He would teach me these little concepts, progressions that I was just fascinated by. Being in that environment, his little studio with a Rhodes piano and a tape recorder, and just going to his house and hanging, becoming friends, and then the person in charge of the stage door was Spider Rondinelli, and he was holding court at the stage door, and a lot of talent, jazz talent, went through their teeth cutting process through his band.
Yeah.
So, and that is also including Eric. I mean, it was like Spider and Company featuring Eric Kloss. Spider took me under his wing. Spider took me down to the Union. I was 16, and he says, you have to join the Union, and he vouched for me.
Okay.
So he was my adult supervisor.
Yeah.
Okay, and so after a while, I started playing gigs. And it was hard because it was interfering with the big band, and I had to tell Nathan that I had to stop playing with the big band. I know he wasn't happy about that. I was very happy years later that we were able to let that go, which was good.
Yeah.
And I ended up recording a record with Nathan, which was it was just phenomenal, a moment to do for me. But playing at the stage door with different people, growing through, I met Eric, I met people I'm still close with today musically, people like Max Leak, Virgil Walters, the late Don DePaulis, and, different drummers that came in. So, so many people, it's going to be hard to name everybody. I was meeting people.
Right.
I was literally meeting the community. And it was great. I mean, I'm playing in a club. I'm gaining experience. And also, this is the other thing, going back to practicing, I was playing a lot of nights. I was, at least during the weekends. So when I wasn't playing during the week on my own, I mean, I certainly wasn't constantly playing all day and then playing at night. I was, the night was my time to really experiment.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds exciting.
It was very exciting. So,
yeah,
and
so,
then...
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Okay, so from that point, I want to go to Berkeley.
Okay.
I remember the recruiter coming, and he convinced me definitely to go. I did have a scholarship to New England Conservatory, and I did turn it down.
Why?
Because I wanted to go to Berkeley.
Okay.
I wanted to play, and Steve Lippman was at the time was the recruiter, and I was all set to go, and Berkeley had a rep, and so here I am at Berkeley, and I'm used to playing in clubs with. I was playing with people like Dave Friedman. I had met Vic Juris, who unfortunately recently passed away, phenomenal guitarist, who was a tremendous influence on me. So I'm hanging with Vic, I'm hanging with Eric, I'm hanging, Arnie Lawrence is coming in, Dave Friedman played vibes there. I played the gig, I failed my SATs, partially because I was playing a gig the night before I did them, partially because my math wasn't that good at the time, but that's all right. So I was doing, so I got a chance, go to Berkeley. So I decided to go to Berkeley, and it was different because I was reduced to a number, and they did it by skill sets, and they rated you. They rated you a certain way, you could be a good player, but if your reading wasn't up to their spec, you were put in a basic ensemble. I was playing with people who were kind of beginners. The thing about Berkeley that was interesting, I did a year there, and I met someone from Pittsburgh, became friends. He was from the neighborhood, His name was Stephen Plotkin, and unfortunately he's gone too. It's sad, yeah. But Steve taught jazz violin at Berkeley, and he got wind of me. He knew me. He took me under his wing, and I had a place to eat dinner. He and his girlfriend had a place in Brookline, and it was like, Jewish home cooking over the week. It was great. He introduced me to Michael Gibbs, who's a composer. And Michael Gibbs was the ensemble. That's the group I wanted to be in. Berkeley was known for big band. So you had the Herb Pomeroy big band, the Phil Wilson big band. And, Maynard Ferguson, Buddy Rich would come through and recruit people for this. So if you were a horn player, that was the band you needed to be in. If you wanted to go out and do the road work that would just launch your career. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be in the Michael Gibbs ensemble. It was diverse, combination of jazz, rock, classical, just anything. And it was so incredible. A lot of great people were in the band. Kermit Driscoll was playing bass in the band. Hank Roberts was playing cello. And I met, Jamie Glazer. He was the other guitar player, who was just a phenomenal player and a phenomenal sight reader. And Stephen introduced me to Mike, and I'm in awe. And I said, Mike, can I just come to Monday night rehearsal and sit in? And I was like, 18 years old, going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And he was great about it. He said, of course you can, come on down. It's great. Mm-hmm. And then one day, and Jamie, I'd sit with him, and and he was just so nice. He wasn't no attitude. He's a great player. You meet people, you never know what's going to happen. He was just so great with me, and he was just, didn't make me feel like I was an inferior or anything like that. It was wonderful. Met a lot of interesting musicians through there, guys in my theory class that I would see just sitting there like this, that I realized were just incredible composers, and I'd find that out later. They were playing in the band. Yeah. And so one day I come down to the Monday. I went every single Monday. Every Monday. And I went in, and there's a Guitar 2 book sitting on my stand. And I said, what's this? He says, it's your book. And I said, Mike, I'm playing the concert. He says, yes, you're playing the concert. I'm like, holy, you know, and I was on cloud nine.
Yeah.
And so the concert, I had a solo.
Get out of
You know,
here.
on one of, he featured me on his tune "Family Joy, Oh Boy." Pat Metheny was playing as a guest artist that night, so I got to meet him. His brother Mike was in the band. I mean, it was a great time, and unfortunately, I only did a year, and that was because I was young, and I just got kind of like, it wasn't my personality. My personality was kind of like, I was young and I was kind of scared, and it was good to come back home and play. And I did a lot of things back home.
Yeah.
Anybody whoever has gone to Berkeley, I've said, don't you dare come back to me and tell me you're leaving after a year.
Yeah.
Finish it.
You regret that?
I do, but later on, I talked to people, actually people who sat in on my first proficiency, two guitarists, Charlie Chapman and Ron Bentley. I remember meeting Ron as a colleague years later, and I told him the story, and I told him how I thought. He says, all roads lead to where you stand. And I said, you know what? I got to tell you, I needed to hear that. And it's important because you make decisions. I mean, it's not, you make a decision, you think it's going to be the right one or whatever, and in many ways it is, and in many ways it's not. You have to try and do what you can do. So there were other doors that opened as a result of that. So after I went to Berkeley, I came back from Berkeley, I taught at Buckle Musical Enterprises. Tom Buckle was the local guitar maker, luthier, who had a shop at the time. And so it was a great time. I was playing every night. He was back with Spider, doing other gigs, doing the arts festivals. I mean, it was glorious,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was understandable. You come back, yeah, I'm playing. This is serious. This is great. And then I went. There was a point where I had to leave the city, okay. But before I did, I finally got a chance to be on Eric Klaus's album. That was the door that opened.
Yeah.
Okay, so one door closes, the other opens. So I played on his album Celebration, which I wish was still in print. You could find clips of it on YouTube, I found later on, which is very cool. But I was 20 years old, rehearsing with Eric, Barry Miles, keyboard player, his brother Terry Silverlight on drums, Mike Richmond on bass. And we made this most intense, clean fusion jazz record in 2 days. I mean, rehearsing constantly, so we were well prepared. I was writing out, because Eric was blind, I was writing out most of the shout choruses, so it was a lot of work that I was ever so happy to do. And it was exciting. So that was a door that was open. And and then continuing to play with Spider and anybody else in the city.
Yeah. So. Yeah. When you came back from Berkeley, you jumped right back into the scene.
Jumped into the scene immediately.
Was your phone jumping off the hook, man? People
I was.
man?
It was different back then. There were a lot more gigs, and so I was working a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, literally, or I would say this. All fairness, I was still living at home, so okay. Yeah, I could make a living playing, and actually, the dollar went further then. So, and we were playing every night, pretty much.
Right.
I remember we were playing when Sunny Days closed. We played the Encore. When we weren't playing the Encore, we were playing the Gaslight on Sunday night. I also should mention, one other time in high school, I was like 17. This is right before graduation. Don Alico, playing the Tender Trap, guitar flute duo. That's where I met Don, and we worked weeks at the Tender Trap. So, so I had a career,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on.
It sounds like it, man. It
Yeah.
sounds like very exciting.
Yeah.
Now I know that wasn't the end. You was just getting started. So when we come back from this break, would you continue to take us on this journey?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't you dare touch that dial. Keep your seatbelts on. We'll be right back with the fantastic Mr. Ken Karsh. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with the fantastic Mr. Ken Karsh. And before we went to the break, he was taking us on this fantastic journey. And he had just come back from Berkeley, doing a year's study at Berkeley. He's back on the Pittsburgh jazz music scene. And now he takes off for the Big Apple. So what was that like for you? And what caused that to happen?
So I'm in Brooklyn. That's where I'm at. Okay, and first thing that actually happens, I get to New York, and I get okay. I'm at a place called Far and Away in Cliffside Park, New Jersey. Okay, I'm with H.B. Bennett, who was living in Brooklyn at the time too. We're at New York at the same time. All right, so I'm in this club, and Jimmy Ponder is playing solo guitar. All right. Now Jimmy is playing great. I mean, killing it. All right. And there's another guitar player there, and she hadn't moved to California. Her name is Joyce Cooling, and she and I played together. And the chemistry with us, between the two of us, was wonderful. We just really played off each other really well. And so, you know, and Jimmy was really into, like, he would play and then let people get up. He really just being giving and really great to hang with, and just, it was wonderful. And then as we're sitting there, he turns to me and says, "Okay, do you want a gig?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Jimmy McGriff is looking for a guitar player. Are you willing to travel?" I said, "Yeah." And then so a couple of days later, his manager calls and tells me to be somewhere to meet them. I can't remember where it was, but I had a gig that night and I couldn't get out of it. I said, and so what happened was, he said, "Well, let me get back to you." And I get a phone call and I hear on the other end, "Ken Karsh, it's McGriff." I said, "Hey, how are you?" He says, "Good. You want to make the gig?" "Yeah." That was my audition.
Get out of here.
That's it.
Just like that.
I mean, this 21-year-old, little Jewish kid.
You know what that was, though?
What?
That was your reputation.
I don't know if it was.
Yeah. I mean, he calls you up.
Well,
no audition.
Well, he took Jimmy Ponder's word for it. Is
Yeah.
what it was. So
Well, your reputation, man.
Yeah, well,
you was kicking, man. You know what I mean? And the word was around, man. You know, you were back. You know, and then when you got up into New York, man, at that point, man, you were pretty much a beast on that guitar. I know you want to be modest about it and humble about it.
Well, there was so many.
That.
Well, because it,
But as you've been taking us on this journey, man, at that point, man, you were a beast, man.
Yeah, I was that. Well, I was a beast.
Yeah,
yes,
you were,
okay, I'll
man.
say
You were a
it.
beast
I was
at that point. You
I was
know what
a
I mean?
beast.
So
Yes.
so I can understand how that situation could have happened for you.
Well, I mean, I guess so. I never actually, thinking about it, yeah, it was my
Yeah,
reputation
think
because
about- yeah.
he put me on the road, unseen, unheard, and I'm on the road for the first time and like meeting pretty much my new family.
Yeah.
Because I became close with the guys. It was Arnold Sterling on saxophone, Vance James on drums, and we went out we went out literally on the Chitlin circuit. That's where we traveled. Coming into these just these small clubs. People coming out, knowing Jimmy, helping with the organ, and when they didn't, we had to lift the organ out of the back, which was, oh my God. And I didn't have the strong, manly physique I have now. So basically, it was a struggle to lift that beast. It was like, and Jimmy had one of the nicest B3s too. It was beautiful. And we'd load up we'd travel in the van and travel across the country, and so I was doing that for like about good almost 2 years I spent with him.
Is that right?
And it was quite the experience. Very eye-opening at some points. I got to see things I probably would never have really gotten a chance to see. Got to experience a little hatred from especially in the mid areas of America.
Okay.
Having water slammed in front of me.
Get outta here.
Being kicked out out of a restaurant in New Haven, Connecticut.
Get out of here.
Oh, it was. I mean,
Yeah.
So it was. You're not going to experience that on that level. It was shocking to me.
Yeah.
And but it was cool just being in that circuit, taking from it, and just letting it all sink in because I had to.
Yeah, man.
I do have recordings from it.
Great.
Okay. What happened was, they're on YouTube, by the way.
Okay.
When I went on the road, I bought myself a gift. When the Walkmans first came out, I bought myself a little Sony TC500, I think it was, or 540, whatever it was. Stereo mics, 4 batteries, so this thing had some girth to it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I remember we were in Mizpah, New Jersey, and we had gone on the road and taken different people, with us. Like Jimmy was trying to do kind of like a Vegas jazz shtick. But when we got to the smaller venues back home, it was just the 4 of us.
Okay.
Jimmy, Vance, Arnold, and me. And that's what I recorded. And wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and the recording, I put the tape recorder right behind the drums, and it picked up everything. It was I was like, whoa, this sounds great.
Yeah.
So there is some audio trail to these gigs, which was really cool.
Yeah,
and,
that is great.
So yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's an experience. Like the jazz organ groove just defines jazz guitar so well. It's where you learn how to comp, because you're the left hand when the organ's playing bass and doing the melody and improv with right hand. You're the left hand, and so many greats: Wes, Pat Martino, Kenny Burrell, all passed through that. And it's amazing. The who came before you is important, and the vibe that you get from that is unteachable and so valuable, and I wish it still happened on that level. I mean, great jazz organ things happening now, but not in the same areas, not like it used to be. And it was a different time.
Yeah.
Where you could smell the steam off the tubes of the B3. It's important.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that was a great era, man. But just the fact that you was able to live it, man. You know what I mean?
I did live it. It was quite something.
That was great. So you said you did that tour for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And so at some point it came to an end.
It came to an end, and there are other things. The other thing that happened in New York that was significant was years back, a woman I was dating at the time, we visited San Francisco and met Bobby McFerrin singing at Bay Jones, which is the jam session in the Bay Area. I got to sit in. It was a pretty intense thing. Bobby was amazing. In fact, I would talk about him. I was raving about him. And I remember HB was talking about the singer in New York one time. He says, yeah, Ken, we got this singer. I said, yeah. He would say, yeah, this person's great. I said, yeah. He says, I know. He's no Bobby McFerrin. Yeah, I said, I can't help it, man.
Yeah.
So it turns out that it was my ex-girlfriend and I who moved to New York together. And she got a job with Linda Goldstein, who was at the time Bobby's manager. Mm-hmm. So when Bobby came in, we reminded him who I was. We got together and basically jammed, had fun, and wrote this tune together that he at the time called Karsh. I put it to music. I wrote it out, transcribed all we did. We recorded it. And he would say, we have to spend more time together. And he called it Karsh. Okay? So, and he also had me, and also HB, play on his first record. Now, I was just doing I was doing more like a folk thing. So I was playing acoustic 12-string and acoustic steel string guitar Nashville tune. And, being paid well for just laying down a part that fit. And that was great. And I was in the studio and he started doing the a cappella for, at the time, Karsh. And I thought it was going to make the record. I'm thinking, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Unfortunately, his voice gave out, and his producers didn't do it. A couple years later, we played it as a duo together. He opened at the Bottom Line with a group, and he and I played the tune together. He was opening for Dave Valentine. It was an amazing vibe that night. And Valentine was at the top of his game, and I remember we played as a duo, me on acoustic guitar, and it was just, it was so incredible. And Bruce Lundvall was there, and they would say, oh, you guys got to get together. Unfortunately, we didn't, and Don't Worry, Be Happy took shape, and the group never went on tour. So, and I don't even know if I would have been a part of it. So that tune, Karsh became renamed Ventana, which is the title of my first CD.
Cool,
So
man.
that was the other thing that came out of New York that was notable. Yeah. That, and also, playing with my dear close friend Neil Fishman, who was, writing musicals and doing dinner theater things. So I was getting a lot of musical theater experience, just kind of doing shows, and there was another way to make a living, and being exposed to the other side of what I do.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in Manhattan, because I didn't do any of that there.
Okay.
But that didn't happen until I got back from Pittsburgh. But those was like the New York scene. And then I met the woman who is now my wife.
Yeah. How did that come about, man? You want to share that?
I want to share that. Well, we knew each other before, but we re-met at the balcony. I was playing, and she came in, and we just reacquainted ourselves with each other. And
No, were you still living in New York?
I was
at
still
that
living in
time?
New York.
Or you just came home for a visit?
Yeah, I came home to play, and I was playing at the
Yeah.
balcony, and we spent time together. And what led to that basically led to a long distance relationship back and forth. I ended from New York to Pittsburgh. I ended up actually playing more in wedding bands, which I was afraid to do because I was self-conscious about singing. But love will do wonderful things for you. And I said, I'm a singer. And I ended up doing a lot of, general business wedding gigs with good musicians, because, everybody wanted to make a living. Yeah. So I met a lot of really cool people through that. And then eventually decided, wanted to continue our relationship. And December of 1985 is when I moved back.
You know what?
Yeah.
You left New York in '85?
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah.
We got a lot in common.
I know, but we didn't meet up. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
man.
Yeah.
Well, look here. So you left New York in 1985.
Right.
When we come back from the break, tell us, what did you do when you came back, all right?
Okay.
Ladies
Sounds
and
good.
gentlemen, we'll be right back with the one and only Mr. Ken Karsh. Don't touch that dial. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Ken Karsh. He was taking us on this journey, and he was up in New York, and he toured the country and everything, and doing his thing with his guitar, meeting all these famous people, playing in all these fantastic places. And then in 1985, he came back home, moved back to Pittsburgh. So continue to take us on that journey. What did you do when you came back home?
Okay, came back, reacquainted myself with everybody again, which was good.
Everybody was glad to see you.
I was glad to see them too. It was great, and playing with Spider because Spider was always working.
Yeah.
And Spider made, like I said, I can't say enough about how he kept things going, and so coming back, getting back on the scene, and of course my sister Roberta, who is kind of like, I tease her because she's kind of like our second mother. Yeah. And it's like, why aren't you going back to school? You need to go back to, it's like, okay. And I don't think much of it, but I'm playing at Jay Clark's one night, a solo gig, getting into technology because I had drum machines. And I'm hooking them up, starting to understand a little bit more about MIDI, which is musical instrument digital interface for those who want to know. And so hooking two drum machines together and having a good time, just kind of like diversifying myself. And Bill Pearce and his wife Lynn were eating dinner that night, and Bill was just starting the music technology program at Duquesne. And he said to me, I would love to, we're getting this off the ground. I know you're interested in this. We have Mac computers coming in. This is like when they're first coming in, the Mac Pluses. And you could get your degree and teach for us. Like, okay, that sounds fair. And I went back, and I did get my bachelor's and my master's degree at Duquesne.
Great.
So it was kind of interesting because I wasn't studying guitar, but in my grad years I was kind of like, they were kind of, I guess, maybe trying to make sure things were covered on the up and up. So Bill had said, you have to take guitar lessons. I said, but we wrote the curriculum. How's that going to happen? And he said, well, you have to do it. I said, oh, okay, that's cool. And well, who do you want to study with? I said, well, who do you think? Joe. So Joe Negri was there, and Joe and I, had a great relationship. And when I went to him, I said, finally, I can put you on my resume.
Yeah.
Because everybody kept saying, you studied with Joe, and I never did. I mean, I love Joe. I gained so much listening and being around him, but here I am studying with him, and it was great. We taught each other, and I gained my credits that I needed, and it was a great hang.
Talk about full circle, man.
Oh,
you
my
was
God.
on his show when you was a little boy.
Exactly.
And
so
now you're at Duquesne,
and I have pictures to prove that too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was good to do that and study composition with a wonderful man named Dr. Joseph Jenkins. He was kind of like a grandfather figure. I mean, he was what a great, marvelous man. I loved him dearly. And so there were some good times at Duquesne, and we had, I was involved in the music technology on some level, not, just teaching computers for musicians, which was really enjoyable, and leading electronic ensemble, which was a whole lot of fun. And so we also had our guitar ensemble, our guitar group. I led that too, like the student ensemble. We had the faculty group, which was Catch-22, which was Bill Pearce, Mark Cook, myself, and Jeff Mangone. And Billy Kuhn joined us on drums. Okay, so we toured Bulgaria.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that, man?
It was amazing. Okay, it was an interesting time. It was a political climate. Well, what's new? It's still weird, but it was pretty tense then. So going over there, wondering what they think of us was interesting, and we got to know people. They got to know us, and it was enlightening. We actually went to the Gypsy Quarter, which was interesting, and some people think of gypsies, they get into the stereotypic look, and it's not like that at all. And we were going there that night to hear a man named Emil Papazov, who is a Bulgarian wedding accordionist. He has Bulgarian wedding music, which is intense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing music. And their dances last like an hour. Like one piece can last an hour. And we're visiting the quarter as his guest. And we're about to leave, and people are looking and kind of looking at us, and we stick out really, really, really well, you know. And he all of a sudden announces, and our host Genko Gurchev, who was a vocal instructor at Duquesne, who got us to Bulgaria as part of the opera program, he translates. He says, "We'd like to welcome our guests from America. Their great reputation, Duquesne University's Catch-22." The entire quarter, I mean, there were, I don't know how many people, there were thousands, all get quiet and turn and look at us as one. And then he starts his wedding music, and it was like, wow, it was deep. So, and between that, like driving through Bulgaria, because we were invited to a lamb roast, which was interesting, and just being part of the culture. But it was really funny because people say, "What kind of food did you eat?" It's like, well, American food in the restaurant. Yeah. Really, it's what happened. But it was what an amazing experience.
So how long did that last for you?
That was a week-long tour. Yeah, it was a week tour.
Wow.
Yeah, six flights total. Three, one stop off, London airport, and then on to Stara Zagora, which was, as I said, it was just really interesting.
Yeah. So what did you do next when you after that tour? You came back.
We came back, and some of the highlights with Duquesne would be being part of Mike Tomero's jazz series, which was really, really wonderful to do. He was doing tributes to the Beatles, tributes to Sting, and so it was fun to play music that he arranged. I love the Beatles and I love Sting, and I mean, because also, when I was a kid, not just listening to jazz, I was also taking in Led Zeppelin, the Beatles.
Oh yeah.
And Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and of course I did mention Chubby Checker, and I'll also say this because I'm a big Petula Clark fan. Love Petula Clark.
Okay.
Like Dynamite. I mean, I listen to a lot of different things.
No,
so.
as a instructor.
Yes.
How do you approach that, or how do you feel about being an instructor, or do they tell you what to teach, or how did all that work?
A class you might be told, you can run the class, they might tell you how to teach it, but private instruction, pretty much on your own.
Okay. Okay, well, let's take private instruction.
Yeah.
What do you usually go for with your students?
I really want students to have foundation.
Okay.
Okay, I think no matter what, it's important to have, and this is funny because what we talked about is like the undisciplined, love to play, hate to practice, but it's not like that now. I am very okay with learning scales and arpeggios. I love doing it, twisting things around, permeating, sequences, melodies to make different things happen. And so, scales, chords, reading, yes, you all have to do that. Should you do it in a rigid, dull way? No, it always has to be musical. So you have to have use for it. Like if you're doing music theory, I believe that you don't do music theory well if all you do is treat it as a class. You have to treat it, you have to use it. Yeah. So if you have a C chord, okay, how's that C chord sound? How's a C scale sound against a C chord? What can you do? What note? I mean, if you're playing, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, those are the notes of a C scale. I can tell you right now, the F is not going to work just sustaining it out. So what do you do with the F? How do you make it work? Do you avoid it? Do you, and this is all on one chord. Understanding how it functions, not necessarily intellectually, but how you're hearing it. And that's what I feel foundation needs to do. You need to get the left and right brain working together as friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
So.
No, improvising.
Improvising.
Yeah. How do you approach that, or do you teach your students how to do that, or?
This is going back to when I first started playing jazz. My teacher, Tom Mester. I remember when we did Watch What Happens, and I was doing the Mickey Baker book, and he taught me how to do a very, straight up chord solo. The process is really simple. I was playing I play it pretty much, obviously with a few more things. I play a few more embellishments. I play it pretty much like I did when I was 12. It's not that different as far as the chords. It's not unique. It's a standard way to do things. It's the language, okay? But with improvising, well, he wasn't a great improviser himself, so he just said, just play. Play what? Just play. And I can even remember my first solo on Watch What Happens. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
But again, it's a matter of like believing that you can do it and hearing and kind of imitating, if not directly, it's like even if you say like throw the ball and you throw the ball to a kid and the kid says throw ball, they're still saying throw the ball. So throw ball can be valid. It's still, you're still picking it up.
Right.
They won't add the until later. But meanwhile, you can do throw ball, and that can be something. You know, if you have 4 notes and you can play those 4 notes over like one chord, what can you do with those notes? But did he show me that? No. It's over time. Again, getting back to George Benson, environment. You know, hanging. If you don't pick up stuff when you're playing, then you're not listening.
Right.
You know, and same with, I mean, you're a drummer, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, you're picking stuff up, and I'm leading ensembles. What are things I tell my kids? It's like, you hear what the drum's doing? If you're not working off that, you're not paying attention. Get your nose out of the music.
Yeah.
And listen, and that's part of it. So as far as improvisation, there are tools you can use, and I think that they should be taught. And there are shortcuts, and there are concepts that you can play with, but you have to play with them, and slowly. Very slowly listening.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of slowness and repetitiveness. You have to keep repeating.
Yeah, that helps you to be precise, and as you build your speed. But that slowness is like the foundation.
Right.
Now you also wrote a couple instruction manuals as well.
I
right?
did. I mean, I have one book. I mean, it's self-published. So basically, if anybody would want one, I would have to make it printed. I haven't printed it in a while, but I put that together from all the materials. I did seminar materials, and that's Fingerboarding Made Easy, and then through Duquesne, we met people from Mel Bay. Corey Christiansen was and still is big with Mel Bay, and he got us involved with. I got involved with a couple things. I transcribed a solo for Bill Bay, who is Mel's son, and runs the company, and that was to get my foot in the door, which it did. That ended up being in a book called it was like a jazz guitar journal, so that transcription is part of that. And then Corey had a series called the Workout Series, and it was like rock guitar, rock scale workout, jazz chord workout. I wrote jazz scale workout, and you don't make a lot of money publishing books, but you do get a rep. And I'm pretty proud of the book because I wrote it back in like 2004, roughly. And 2020, I just still get little checks for it.
Yeah.
But it's still selling.
Yeah.
That's
great, man.
So yeah, I wrote that, and that's kind of like a book that just takes exercises based on major scale, the Dorian mode, and scales that you use in Jazz 251. And they're just examples of lines you could play, and then hopefully you can like use them to do your own lines or not. Just whatever you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now your theater experience that you had in New York, you brought it back to Pittsburgh, and you just did a theater here a little while ago, Little Shop of Horrors, correct?
Right. I did that for Pittsburgh Public Theater. It was a total blast. It was so much fun. And I've been the guitar player for the Benedum for quite a while now.
Okay.
And we've done, and some of the shows that come through the Cultural Trust, I've done shows like Mean Girls, Carole King Beautiful, Something Rotten, and sometimes those shows allow me to play with guitar players who are coming up that are younger, and it's fun to play with them because I love learning from them, and it's great, and I've had good experience with them, and. I remember my first thing was Jesus Christ Superstar for the Benedum. That was my first real foot in the door, and then cut to many years later. I've done so much for that, and then Front Porch Theatricals is another theater company I love working for. We did shows like Floyd Collins and Violet. We did Bright Star. These are very cool, very progressive shows, and it's just fun to be a theater person.
Yeah, it sounds like it, man.
Yeah.
But look, let me ask you, Ken, looking back on all of it, do you have any regrets?
Any regrets? Well, I mean, you know, there's so much good that happened. I mean, it's a hard one to answer because there's always going to be something you regret. There are times when I might have wanted to hook up with other people that I should have done more of. Yes, of course.
Okay.
You know, but again, when one door closes, another one opens. Okay, and so yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some kind of like, what if I would have done it this way, or what if, you know? But then again, if you do that, if I'd have gone that direction, would this direction have happened?
Yeah.
And so it's. I'm not saying that I don't have regrets, but I also know that I have a lot of open doors as well.
Right, right.
So if that
Now,
makes any
is
sense.
there anything that you have not done that you would still like to do?
Oh, I would love to play two musicians who I love, Vince Mendoza and Billy Childs. I'd love to do a gig with you guys. Are you listening? I mean, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
I've done a lot of, great things. Probably like to do more touring. Maybe I'd love to play in Europe.
Okay.
More. Not just Bulgaria. Although I'd love to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, I did that seminar. We didn't mention the seminar in Mexico. That was my friend Victor Ruiz put that together for me, and I did a clinic and concert with two wonderful Mexican players, Pablo Prita and Jorge. Oh God, I'm blanking on Jorge's last name. Jorge Preza. Oh God. Okay, getting old. Sorry. So it was wonderful to play there. The audience was great, receptive. Being in Mexico was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Very urban. A lot of Volkswagens at the time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So what about you fronting your own ensemble, the Ken Karsh project, so to speak? Any thoughts of doing something like that?
You know, it's funny because it's hard to do. A lot of times going out, the financial situations make it hard to put together an ensemble to keep them working.
Yeah.
So when I go out, I usually go out
With someone.
or somebody's going to be in the city.
Okay.
Example, I play with this very wonderful keyboard player named Dave Powers, and a drummer, also an excellent drummer. And this is in Columbus, Ohio. Lou Chamus, and Dave, he has a great rep in Columbus, so I go to Columbus, he calls me to play a gig, I do that. I did the Blue Wisp in Cincinnati with Phil DeGreg. There was a trio that was already there, so it's just more feasible to travel alone. And the beautiful thing about doing that now is that it's a more global world now. So it's not like, well, you're not going to get good musicians in any place but New York. You get good musicians everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure somebody's going to argue with me about this, but we got great people here. I remember being in Harrisburg, and I remember being there with Eric Kloss. We did a thing out there. And I met people there, these two twins. One played bass, one played guitar. They were great. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like they're good players everywhere. It's not just.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's like, don't overlook the local talent. And the new talent coming up now is amazing. I mean, I hear a lot of this, people saying, oh, the millennials, they're not making things grow. It's nothing new's happening. I got news for you. I was playing at George Hyde III's jam session at Con Alma, okay? I can't believe the young talent coming up. It is unbelievable.
Great.
And so I think if you're worried about preserving it, it's safe. I want to see how much it keeps growing. That's what I'd like to see. But we got a lot of great people out there, and they're speaking the language. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, unfortunately, we're out of time, man, but you have a fantastic career, man. I appreciate you coming down and sharing some of your experiences with us, man. And I tell you what, Ken, man, as long as I'm doing this, man, you can always come back, man.
I'd love to, Timmy. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do, make somebody happy, make somebody strong. Until next time.
Rap.